Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Selling with Love podcast. Very, very excited to have a huge entrepreneur, a spiritual leader, a speaker that has gone around the world and worked with millions of people to truly allow them to live their purpose, achieve greater visions, and make a massive impact in the world. We are at a crisis of leadership right now where people are being thrown in various directions because they can't even trust their own sense of direction. And I'm so excited to not only dive into what can we do to be our own champions and to make that impact in the world in the vision that we want to bring forward, but also dig into the path of this entrepreneur who's built a company that has reached projectedly around 400 million in revenue by this year. This is none other than David Ghiyam, who is joining me as the co-founder of MaryRuth. If you're not familiar with this brand of vegan organic products that are available on so many platforms, including Whole Foods Market, you've probably heard of this vitamins company. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere. It's one of the fastest growing companies in the world. And I love the fact that this man has not only been a key part in building a business pillar with massive success, but has worked with CEOs, celebrities, executive, coaching them, providing them massive value, and of course, has done over 2,000 live seminars. Not his first rodeo, but he's here now on the Selling with Love podcast. David, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the very warm intro.
Well, we got to do a proper introduction to someone who's done some proper stuff.
That was really well done. Actually, I want to get that intro, and we got to send it to other people for inspiration. That was very well cut up.
I'm going to take that part. I'm going to trademark it so I get a little royalty for every single person that sees it.
True businessman. I said that, true businessman.
Well, speaking of business, like it's amazing to see how you are someone that has such a background in the spirituality. I mean, you practice a lot of the spiritual wisdom of the Kabbalah. You also have all this business success. And oftentimes people look at spirituality in one pillar, business on the other, and they're like completely separate. They shouldn't touch each other. If you're spiritual, you can't be in business. If you're business, then, spirituality doesn't have a space. You flip that on its head, don't you?
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, the background of it is I found Kabbalah when I was 15 years old. And Kabbalah is just universal spiritual wisdom for every soul in this world. Because a lot of people don't know what it is. It's not religion, it's just spirituality. And this was on the heels.
I'm not very sure what it is, to be honest.
Most people don't know. And it's just so simple because it's really just a blueprint of your soul, why you came to this world, and tools and technology that has existed since the beginning of time of how to create miracles. So I had created my first $1 million when I was 14 years old, part luck, part just getting involved. I was very hungry. I was playing poker. I was investing. I was trading. I was doing many different things. And my life was just not headed in the right path. Someone introduced me to spirituality. And the way they sold me on it at the time was my uncle. Basically, if you learn spirituality, you'll have the tools to be as successful as you want to be, faster without side effects. So I dove in. I took one course, changed my life. And then I said, you know what? Making money is not even fulfilling. I want to do this full time. So I went to UCLA. I graduated early when I was 19. And when I was 19, I joined a nonprofit to go teach Kabbalah around the world. So literally that's when I started to meet the CEOs of the world, the celebrities, the founders. And even though I was a young kid, this wisdom was so powerful. It was helping them create powerful businesses, find their way through relationships, literally any kind of pain point, it was able to help solve. When I was 29, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to need to jump in, David, because there's one thing you just said very quickly, and I need to kind of pull on this thread. You went and said, I was doing all these different activities and made millions of dollars and found myself like I was walking in the wrong path. And I need to just go there because if anybody else caught that, would have been saying, hold on, that seems like the path I've been trying to achieve all this time. And you're telling me that was the wrong path. How can that be?
Right. So there's really what a lot of people are starting to learn is there's two parts to us, and there's like two vessels. There's the vessel of receiving and the vessel of sharing, meaning when you're receiving, the fulfillment is very limited. It has it's very linear. It starts and it ends. When you're giving and you're creating, the fulfillment is very circular, so it's endless. And this is why we love creating. And even though we're creating to receive something, when you receive it, that's actually when you're most depressed. Like, fast forward, I've started this company 10 years ago with MaryRuth, and we only had a partial exit 3 years ago. And that was the first time we actually had money. Like, we were broke until this partial exit. And I remember when that wire hit the bank, and it's enough of a wire to last lifetimes. I probably had the most depression and sadness from that day for months. And this is what you will hear from everyone when they, quote unquote, hit that goal, hit that milestone, when they receive. So the receiving is very limited. We love to build. And I learned that early on in my teenage years. I was much more fulfilled teaching, mentoring, and guiding other people to be successful than making my own money. Now, that's not to say that eventually when I became 30, I realized I got to make my own money. And Kabbalah helped me with MaryRuth build this company. We have no business experience, but once you understand like the laws of consciousness, the vibration of the energy we need to put out, how to overcome limited belief systems, how to really not get in our own way, it created a magical environment where we found the right employees that way. We found the right product ideas, the right marketing. Like it was one miracle after another, but because of the spiritual foundation. And that's it's all consciousness. It's all mindset. And the best founders actually have it. The best founders are spiritual. Like Elon Musk is spiritual. We don't realize it. He may not even admit it, but he thinks on such a level that's like, what? That's the spirit.
It's so interesting, the fact that you're calling out something that you've heard whispers about so much around, like you receive the payday, you go into present, what the hell's going on? This kind of energy of giving seems to be what is causing a lot of this fulfillment. But it's very different, it seems, when you're at the early stages where you can't see above the bushes, when it feels like you have a lot of needs that you want to get covered in your own life. And then you're like, I need to take because I can't even get ahead. And then do you reach a certain threshold and then you're like, okay, now I can give? Or do you need to go and give first? And how do you balance that when it seems so much like, oh, I don't even have enough to give?
That's so powerful. You know, everybody says, when I make it, I will give.
Yeah.
And the secret is when you give, then you make it. So the companies that are most successful when they're in that startup phase is because they're really trying to give back to the customer. They're thinking about how to solve a problem. They're creating a great product and they're putting their heart and soul behind it. Something happens along the way where you make it about what you can get, what you can receive, and that's when they start to degrade the product, degrade the marketing, cut corners. And that's when companies energetically begin to fail. Like customers can feel when your product's on a shelf, they look at the product and they feel the aura, whether they realize it or not. The best marketing is when you go back to headquarters and the energy of the founder is one of giving, it transfers to the product on the shelf. So people feel that and that's why they buy it. They don't know why they trust the brand. They don't know why they like it, but they grab it off the shelf because they feel something. Everything is about making the customer feel something, and it starts with the founder's intention to want to share, not to take. And what's interesting, this piece of our company we sold 3 years ago, MaryRuth and I actually decided a month ago we want to buy it back. So we went and raised 3 times the amount and put all our chips back in to rebuy back the whole company. I'm telling you, Jason, like no founder in our position, and by the way, everyone said it was the stupidest thing that a founder can do. Like now is the time you exit, you get that ginormous payday and you move on with your life, right? We said there's nothing more fulfilling than actually running this brand and doing it for the consumer. So we actually went and raised the money, leveraged debt, just so we could run it the way we want to run it for the consumer. It's more fulfilling, it's more risky, but we kind of know where this ends if we don't do it this way.
Which kind of brings me to the fact you're already alluding to it. It sounds like there's always some great firms that go up, they get big, and then there's almost like a dilution or something that gets lost in the process. Oftentimes, as you said, the energy of the founder maybe not being there, but you've seen companies go through these cycles, and there's almost like, we talked about the original problem, which is like at the beginning, you feel like you need to get so much before you can start giving. And then there's a part of a business that was giving, which is like, now that we've given so much, we should take. And that almost seems to be the second obstacle or the second challenge that comes up in the business cycle, isn't it?
Right. As soon as you take, and by the way, you can receive, right? There's nothing wrong with receiving in order to share. But when that crosses the threshold of being a taker, like if you would be embarrassed if everybody knew what you just did, that's a sign that you shouldn't do it. And I'll give you some behind the scenes. Like I interviewed 50 private equity firms before we picked one because their philosophy, and they weren't even the highest number, their philosophy was, We are going to stay out of your way, but give you all the support you need because we believe in the magic of the founders. And they were incredible partners, but I'm part of a little CEO group. And this is kind of the behind the scenes stuff that I see all the time. I'm on a text group with 10 other founders. Each of them have scaled their own company to over $100 million, mostly without funding. They are the best of the best. And these are people in their 20s or 30s or maybe early 40s. And the ones that have taken investments or have friends who have, and we talk about it daily, they're in pain because they see how investment firms can come in and take the magic of the founder away. And there's a degradation that happens because you have a taking consciousness. So for whoever is listening, it's easier to be a giver in the beginning because you're trying to build something and you want to add value to the world. But there's going to become a point, a fork in the road, where it's going to become more about you and not the customer. And you got to pass that test. You got to always make it about the customer. Always. The customer always wins. That's the secret of Amazon. That's the secret of Tesla. It's always about what's going to be better for the customer, even if it's more expensive, even if it's difficult. You always win that way.
On the entrepreneur journey, you get your ass kicked a lot of times. And there's a lot of pain you can take on the process as well. But then when you're always focused on the customer, it's almost like you're trying to do the right thing over the long term. But sometimes in the short term, because you're maybe not taking, are you seeing that there's even more challenges that come or less when you go with this mentality?
Well, you know what's also good for the customer? To be profitable. Like I tell people, they want to go raise a bunch of money. They want to spend all this money. I'm like, you're hurting the customer and you're also hurting your employees when you're not running a profitable business. We didn't hire our first employee for 5 years until we hit 10 million of revenue. We decided to just wear every hat. Why? Because if you're not profitable, you're suffering. It's like a body that has a disease when you're not profitable. It's not healthy. So we did a retreat with our 200 employees and we put our numbers and our profits on the board. We said, look at how much money we as a company are making. And this is important because if we didn't have profit, we can't reinvest that back into higher quality systems, back into your bonuses, back into your education, back into what we want to do now is we want to be a level of testing of our products that no brand in the world does. And it's going to cost so much money, but that money has to come from somewhere. And because there's profit, we can reinvest that back into higher levels of testing. So it's also not selfish to run a profitable company. It's also not selfish to run a company where, by the way, if you have B or C players, I'm going to say this to all those who are running a business right now. Every quarter, we examine who's operating at that B or C level. And what does that mean? B or C level just means they act like they don't really want to be there. Their heart and soul's not in it. Or maybe they're the right person in the wrong seat, or they're the wrong person. And if we don't look into that and challenge them and basically say, hey, let us support you to get you to what is an A, or let us help you find another job, if we don't have that conversation, we are screwing over the customer. There's nothing more toxic for the customer, for the company, and for the employees than keeping people who don't want to be there or who are taking advantage of the situation because they don't know what else to do. You understand? We're changing it. So can firing be a giving thing? Yes. Can layoffs be a giving thing? Absolutely. Are founders often putting their head in the sand because they're afraid of confrontation? Or maybe that person's been with you since the beginning and, they helped build you to a certain point, but now they're not good enough to go to that next level, but you're afraid to do anything about it. Those have been the employees that caused the most problems. And guess what? They have another soulmate company waiting for them that might even pay them more money and better opportunity. What do we know? But we got to do what's right for the customer.
So it sounds like having that pulse on the customer is kind of the anchor in the philosophy of running these big businesses. So I'd be curious to know, what are some of the key habits you do or think about to make sure that you're never, assuming what the customer wants, but truly doing what you think is the best for the customer?
So here's one of the spiritual things that I do. I walk around my city. Literally, I'm just walking the street for hours. And I ask the universe, what does the consumer want? I literally just ask out loud. And then what I do is I find random people on the street. And I look kind of weird doing it, but I say, hey, can I ask you a question? They go, sure. Like I walk by Air One. I do this all the time. Like, can I ask you a question? Yeah. What vitamin brand do you trust for your family? And some of the best product ideas, the ones that have generated, the biggest amounts of revenue came from me asking a random person on the street, because I've already put the energy out to the universe that I want the universe to channel through the next person I talk through. Right. So I'm not doing these big $100,000 like focus groups and whatnot. I'm just asking people on the street, what do you need? What do you not have? What scares you as a mom? Somebody once said, what scares me as a mom is heavy metals. I think within a week, we joined a program called Clean Label Project Verified. And we had all 270 of our products tested, cost us millions of dollars a year, and we have to retest them every year. We test them for 200 heavy metals, toxins, pesticides, and plastics. Because someone in a grocery store told me she's worried about heavy metals for her child. And that is just like a way that, just asking random people is just something I like to do as a founder, because I think that the universe will send you the right people that you need to hear from if your desire is there.
I really love that. As someone that talks about selling with love, for me, it's all about getting an impulse from the customers. And I find that when you go through doing surveys, looking at just like data, that's, there's good things you can get from, vast amounts of data, but there's this heart connection of speaking to people.
Yes.
That I think is missed in the line items of numbers,
Yes. Yes. First 5 years, I made sure to read every single question that came in from the consumer, because I was feeling them. I looked at their address. I looked at where they lived. I visualized, okay, this person's in Tennessee. Like, who is this person? I tried to connect with them. And I remember when my first child was born, Amazon has this thing where you have to respond to questions within 24 hours or you get penalized. And I was in the room and MaryRuth was in labor. And I said to her, I said, like, we have, and she saw me on the laptop and she said, hey, look, make sure you answer all these questions. It's okay. Like, she was in labor and we were there and I laughed, and she's like, she's the one who always told me this. The customer always comes first. So if you want to know if MaryRuth really believes in the consumer, she wanted to make sure I responded to those customer service questions while she was in labor in the birthing room.
Okay.
I mean, part of it was she had her doula. So she's like, hey, look, I need to just be with her right now. And, you need to leave. So that kind of was part of it. But at least the consumer was still on her mind.
Well, for some, everything you're saying right now, it's like, it sounds amazing. But there's also a catch to that you could disqualify yourself saying, this sounds like way too much work. I'm already overwhelmed. There's all sorts of things I have to deal with. This seems like something that, takes my attention away from a lot of the core key things else. What do we do around energy management when you start doing that? And are there any changes to how you actually operate because you're doing this?
Oh, I love that. Well, when we started the company, we only had $700. We were in debt, actually. We had just gone through 4 miscarriages. We lived in a tiny apartment. And we were pretty much broke for the first 7 years because, as you know, and many people listening, if your company makes money, that doesn't mean you make money. Because you have to reinvest all that money back into inventory and marketing and hiring. And so it was a very, very difficult 7 years. But one of the things that really helped was MaryRuth came to me, and this is what she's really known for, time blocking. She said, everything that you have going, and we have 4 kids now, 4 kids under 7, and we're running the business, and we got 170 employees and yada, all that. And she's like, if we want to be able to raise our children, be there for our family, still run this company, and now that we bought it back, right, it's fully our responsibility. She's like, we have to say no to 99 out of 100 things that come our way that distract us, and only say yes to the absolute important things that we need to do for our lives, our health, our well-being. For example, I had an idea 3 years ago. Someone came to me because they saw we were successful. Like, oh, David, can you join the board of this company? Or can you help us build this other business? And I went to MaryRuth. I'm like, oh my God, here's another opportunity. We could be very successful. And she's like, stop it. Focus on your kids, on the business that you have, and say no to everything else. And so what happens, and everybody needs to know this, when you're on the precipice of success, there's a negative force out there that will come to distract you with absolute nonsense. It could be something that looks righteous. It could be something that looks like another great opportunity. It could be all of a sudden this nostalgia you have to, I don't know, start playing the piano or something. By the way, and there's nothing wrong with playing the piano, but you have to ask yourself, if I spend an hour a week playing the piano, will that elevate my consciousness, give me more energy, and put me in a better mood to be all the things I need to be? Or is that distracting me? Piano, I think, would actually add value. But there are a lot of things that we all do to sabotage our health, our family, our time. And you can't have both, right? So if you're eating poorly, there's no excuse. You will have less energy to work on your company. You will have less energy to be with your kids. And you will get to your milestones years and years later, if at all, just because we chose to eat poorly. Or we chose not to sleep well and like doom scroll at night, or whatever it is that we all have our escapes. And if you want to be successful, you just have to put those escapes aside. And I always tell people, you'll have those escapes afterwards. Just because you can't tell people never to have them because their addiction will just roar and scream. The best thing to do to tell your addiction is, I will feed you, just not right now. We'll get there. That's a little hack.
That's a good hack. I've asked this before to guests, and I feel like I'll get a similar answer, so I'll go ahead and ask it too. Is most people I've spoken to, once they have kids, become more productive.
Oh my God. Sometimes I look at my single friends with no kids, and they're like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm like, and I just told you, I'm like, I have to leave this podcast soon because I have to go bathe 4 kids. Having kids, you know why it makes you more productive? Because you learn how to stop everything that is a waste of time. And I do this all the time. Everything that takes me 8 hours to do, I always ask myself, how can I do that in 1 hour? Everything that takes me 1 hour to do, how can I do that in 5 minutes? And everything that takes me 5 minutes to do, how can I delegate that? We run our house like a business. What does that mean? It means that we divide responsibilities in a way that's efficient. We block everything schedule-wise. We make sure that everything is there on time in the right way. Kids love a schedule. They love routine. And when you break the routine, it also hurts them. It hurts everybody. So we have our own philosophies in our home that we know work for us. But I will say that the biggest issue that CEOs and founders make at every level, and I'm so guilty of this, is we have a hard time delegating because we think no one can do it better than us. And it's the number one thing holding us founders back from being successful and having peace of mind. There's someone out there who wants to take this responsibility off your shoulders, who can do it better than you, and you can get your time back. And like, what's your time worth? Like, let's say your time is worth $300 an hour or $500 an hour. Some founders, $5,000 an hour, $10,000 an hour. And you're doing something that your assistant can do for $50 an hour or $20 an hour, whatever it is. Or you have an international employees. I would suggest always looking for international employees before you hire domestic when you're starting a company, because the payroll is what will crush you in the beginning. And there's a limited belief that someone from the Philippines or someone from India or someone from Mexico isn't as talented as the US. And this is just not true. It's not true at all. Again, I'm all about keeping jobs in the US, but no one's going to have a job if you can't make payroll. So finding that right balance of international and American domestic employees is also essential. I mean, the best companies in the world probably have more international employees than they do domestic. And they reinvest those profits back into the consumer.
And again, when you have that mindset for the consumer, then you start making those decisions that make a lot more sense.
Right.
David, I feel like we're just scratching the surface from all the amazing stuff that you do. And I know that you have this incredible masterclass where you get people to go deeper into finding more love, finding more fulfillment in their lives at Kabbalah One. I'd love for you to share more about that and what people could discover by going through that.
I appreciate that. About 7 years ago, this is a course I've been teaching for 20 years. It's changed people's lives. A few billionaires have come out of this course, interestingly enough. And one person who started with nothing, became a billionaire from taking this course, came to me and said, I want to give back, donated $2 million to film this course and put it up as a masterclass. And what we've done is provided it for the world in a pay what you want model. So you can pay $1, you can pay nothing, whatever you want. It all goes to charity. And it is a very well produced way of learning spiritual, practical, business, relationship, soulful content that will change your life, I think, within the first hour. And it's for everyone. So it's KabbalahOne.com. I have about 3,000 to 4,000 people a month who sign up for it. And I just get hundreds of messages a day, people saying it changed their life. So whatever spiritual background you have, business background, religious background, doesn't matter. From the first course, you're going to see that it connects all the dots for you.
David, I wouldn't let you go before asking the one question I have to ask everyone who does come on the show, which is, you're on the Selling with Love podcast, and I'd love to know what selling with love means to you.
Selling with love, I believe that wherever you go, people should have left your presence wealthier, healthier, and happier. And that's a sign that you are a blessed person. And if you go places and people have drama where you go, or they have sadness where you go, or they aren't as prosperous because of knowing you, then that's something that we need to change inside of ourselves. So when I heard selling with love, like the first thing I heard is like, I just want to be the person that wherever I go, people are more blessed because I'm there. And that happens when you're not selling, but you're giving and you're trusting and you have certainty and you operate at a very high vibration. Then people through osmosis connect to that vibration and then they become blessed as well.
David, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Listen,
I know we have so
me.
much more I want to talk about, but we are on a little bit of a time crunch.
You are very good. You are very good at what you do.
Well, 400 episodes in, I'm starting to pick up on little clues, you know?
I have learned. Can I just say what I've learned from you?
Tell me.
Because I love being in the presence of people who are really good at what they do. And the irony is that I had a podcast a long time ago and I had to focus on the business and many other things. And today is the day I decided to start my new podcast. And I literally filmed the first episode today. And having met you for the first time and hearing that you're on your 400th, and I was listening to you and I'm like, he is a great interviewer. You are very focused and in tune, and I can tell you're prepared because I know when someone has or has not prepared. You prepared, but you still allowed yourself to be a channel, which is that perfect combination of anyone who takes a stage. So that inspired me. And I wanted
I'll
to thank
take
you for
that. Dave, thank you. I really take that in. That's very kind. And we build systems. And again, speaking a bit of the things you were sharing on today, which is, finding ways to whatever takes 4 hours, make it 1 hour, or delegate. I have an incredible team that gives me all the preparation material I need so I can get on a call, get it done. I am prepared. I have my notes. They go and find the right people. And with that, one of the biggest things I picked up on, and just came through repetition, is I have this belief where it's like, I can't mess up an interview. I can't. If I'm just actually curious and I'm listening and the person in front of me, they all have something incredible to share. I can listen. I'm not, I have question 1, 2, 3. It's just like, where is this going? And where does my curiosity call me? And so everything you shared around how you're spiritually connecting, I think that part that you shared, people are not estimating how huge of a big deal that is to just go around your market, call into the universe, bring me the right person, have that conversation, ask powerful questions, be curious. This is the big takeaway that I got from these conversations, and about focus on the customer, profit can serve the customer. These are beliefs that I really hope that everyone paying attention and listening to this interview, you've captured as well, because you can't mess it up. If you care, if you're caring for the customer and you're doing what's necessary to grow, to serve, to make that impact, we're on the right path. And hopefully some of us are going to have as big of an impact as you had on the millions of people you've done. So David, thank you again so much for your time. This was such a pleasure to have this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.